Welcome to the Zen Studies Podcast. I'm Domio Burke, a Soto Zen priest and teacher. Thanks, as usual, to new supporting members of the podcast, Jeff and Angela from St. Helens, Oregon, Nick from Sacramento, California, Janie from Enterprise, Oregon, and Jason from Trenton in Ontario, Canada. So, did you know you can join me for live practice, in person or online? The only barrier to this is the difference between our time zones. I'm in the Pacific time zone, or Greenwich time, minus 8 hours. I do have a few people who join me for practice from the UK, though, so it's not impossible. My Sangha, Bright Way Zen, is committed to maintaining a vibrant practice space in both our Dirt Zendo, that's our physical space, which is just west of Portland, Oregon, on the west coast of the U.S., and in our Cloud Zendo, our virtual space, accessible for free using the Zoom app from anywhere in the world. If you join us in the Cloud Zendo, you aren't simply watching a video feed of our activities. You can actually be seen and heard and participate fully. That is, as much as you want to, of course. To find out more, just go to zenstudiespodcast.com and click Online Practice Opportunities in the top menu. So this is Being the Only Buddhist in Your Family, Part 1. Many, if not most, English-speaking Buddhists who might be listening to this podcast, or Spanish-speaking, because there are Spanish translations of many of my podcast episode scripts available at zenstudiespodcast.com, thanks to one of my listeners, Claudio from Argentina. So most English-speaking Buddhists or Spanish-speaking Buddhists are converts to Buddhism. And even if you were raised in a Buddhist family, chances are good that as an adult you are surrounded by non-Buddhists, or that as an active Buddhist practitioner you are surrounded by people for whom Buddhism is largely a cultural matter. I'm going to discuss the challenges of being the only Buddhist in your family or intimate relationship, and discuss ways to create more harmony between your spiritual practice and your close relationships. So recently someone sent me this question, which inspired this episode. It was, I wonder what advice you have for people who are the only Buddhist practitioners in their family. Have you noticed practice taking a toll on marriages between Buddhists and very supportive non-Buddhists, or family members taking a toll on practice? So in thinking about this question, how much tension we experience in our family relationships with respect to our spiritual practice depends on many things. But our answers to the following 3 questions are central. 1, what is the religious or spiritual practice, if any, of our family members, and how devout are they? 2, how involved are we with Buddhism? And 3, how do we negotiate the impact of our practice on our families? Now, we can't do much about number 1, that is, the spiritual or religious practice of our family members, and hopefully, regarding number 2, for the most part, we are able to follow our heart and needs when it comes to the level of our involvement with Buddhism. This means, number 3, negotiating the impact of our practice on our families is where we can make a difference. I'll begin by discussing issues 1 and 2, describing some of the ways tension arises between our Buddhist practice and our family relationships. Then I'll talk about 6 ways we can relieve some of that tension and create more harmony in our life. In this episode, I'll cover the first 2 ways, And in the next episode, I'll continue with the other 4. And finally, I'll wrap up this topic by talking specifically about being a Buddhist practitioner in an intimate relationship, an intimate partnership with someone who is not on the same spiritual path. So first, the first question. What is the religious or spiritual practice, if any, of our family members, and how devout are they? Ironically, the most negative reactions to our Buddhist practice often come from family members who are either very devout members of a different faith or are staunch atheists or anti-religious, particularly if they have rejected organized religion because of past negative experiences. Family members who are more or less indifferent to religion may not understand your Buddhist practice, but it's less likely to bring up resistance in them based on their own beliefs. Sometimes a religious family member will feel confused or hurt by your apparent rejection of the family's commonly held religion. Why wasn't it enough? Are you rejecting your family members as well as their religion? In some cases, religious family members believe you, as a Buddhist, are going to hell or will suffer some similar terrible fate because of your choice. Even if you think of yourself as practicing Buddhism as well as your family's tradition. These reactions can be very painful for all involved. If a family member or significant other is a staunch atheist or anti-religious, on the other hand, your Buddhist practice can cause the person to question your sanity, especially if your relationship formed before you were Buddhist. Your turning to religious practice may feel like a betrayal of commonly held values or worldviews. For example, if someone believes, as Marx famously quipped, that religion is the opium of the people, it may be difficult for them to reconcile their respect for you, their relationship with you, and their low opinion of devout religious people. Also, although Buddhism is non-theistic, it is a rich tradition with all kinds of religious trappings like texts and clergy, ceremonies, special vocabulary, devotional practices, and, most confusing of all, altars and imagery depicting figures that look an awful lot like various gods. Family members wary of religion may be fearful you've been caught up in a cult or otherwise seduced into seeking solace in something false or even dangerous. Now, while family members without any strong ties to or opinions about religion may not have strong negative reactions to your practice, they may be utterly unable to relate to it. At least those strongly identified with a different faith understand the attraction to religious or spiritual practice and community, even if they're upset about which tradition you chose. A-religious family members may assume your Buddhist practice is just a hobby you've taken up to fill your time, or a technique you use to feel less stress, when your practice may mean much more than that to you. Regardless of whether our loved ones are religious, anti-religious, a-religious, or a combination of these, it can be challenging if they don't share our desire to practice Buddhism. They may feel jealous of our outside interest or feel less connected to us because they don't relate to our practice. And we may feel sadness that our loved ones don't understand or aren't interested, and that we can't share this important part of our lives with them. I'll talk about things that we can do to mitigate some of these difficulties in a bit. But first, I want to discuss how our answer to the second question impacts our familial relationships. That is, how involved are we with Buddhism? Familial reactions are, of course, going to depend in a large part on how much time we spend on our Buddhist practice. Meditating, attending Sangha events, volunteering, going to retreats, or studying. And how visible our practice is. For example, sitting in meditation at home while others are there, or maintaining an altar, wearing a Buddhist vestment like a wagesa or a rakusu, filling your shelves with Buddhist books, or publicly identifying yourself as a Buddhist. If we have family, particularly if we live with them or see them often, as the only Buddhist in the family, we usually have to carefully negotiate the depth and extent of our involvement with Buddhism. It's not at all uncommon for practitioners to wish they could be more involved or more visibly involved, but feel they need to limit the impact of their practice on family relationships. Obviously, our time and attention are limited, and sometimes time spent with Sangha or on practice is time that might otherwise be spent with family. And there's no getting around this. I have seen people damage their relationships because they spent almost all of their spare time and energy on Buddhist practice. But I've also seen people who have tragically cut off their practice because family members resented it. Now, discomfort with the visibility of our Buddhist practice is of a different nature. Many of us find that our family members are okay with our Buddhist practice up to a point. As long as it seems fairly casual, like a hobby, it's not a big deal. Once it leaks out of the back bedroom into the living room, or into dinner conversations, or once you formally become a Buddhist, or you refuse to steal internet access because you've taken the precepts, your families may think things are starting to get weird and alarming. How far are you going to go? Who are you going to become? You could argue that the visible aspects of our practice don't deprive family members of anything, and that it's good for us to learn to live with the stares or lack of understanding or eye rolls or whatever kinds of less than supportive reactions we might get when our practice shows. However, maintaining healthy relationships always involves give and take, so it doesn't work very well to just completely disregard the reactions of our family members as if they were strangers. That brings me to question number 3. How do we negotiate the impact of our practice on our families? I have 6 recommendations. I'm going to talk about the first 2 in this episode, and then continue with the rest in the next episode. 1. Thoughtful explanation. When or if you have an opening. Trying to explain our Buddhist practice to family members is the first approach some of us take. We figure that if they just understood, they would accept and support our practice and not feel worried or judgmental, upset, or confused about it. There would be harmony between our chosen spiritual path and our family relationships. Sadly, explanation rarely seems to help all that much. Frankly, few people actually want to know about Buddhism or your practice, even if they love you. Even if you're open about your practice, you may notice that no one asks you about it. Or if they do, they ask a question like, "Do you guys pray to the Buddha?" And then, When you delve into the fascinating answer to that question, their eyes quickly glaze over, and that's where the conversation effectively ends. I remember when I was considering ordination as a Zen monk and was trying to explain away the growing tension with my family surrounding the choice. I felt like I was beating my head against a brick wall. I wondered why they didn't understand yet, or why I was unable to offer an adequate explanation. My sister finally told me something I have never forgotten. She said, "We don't care about Buddhism. All we care about is how it's going to affect our relationship with you." I suspect this is the case for almost all the non-Buddhists we are close to. However, every once in a while, you get a real opening and are able to offer something helpful to your loved ones by way of explanation. When this happens, it can be extremely valuable to make it clear that Buddhism is a non-theistic faith. That while it has many of the trappings of religion, the practice of it does not depend on belief in a supreme deity or in praying for redemption from a power beyond oneself. On the other hand, Buddhism is also not dependent on an atheistic worldview. There are many, many Buddhists who also believe in God or in gods, or who practice other religions as well. Those other religions may not approve of Buddhism, but Buddhism doesn't disapprove of them, as long as they teach and practice basic morality, kindness, and compassion. For our atheistic or anti-religious family members, it can help to explain that you are not asked to believe or practice anything in Buddhism that you don't choose to, and that you are meant to test and verify the validity and usefulness of everything you decide to embrace. You can present Buddhism as a practical, down-to-earth approach for living a happier life, even if it's more profound than that for you. With your explanations, you are not trying to teach the Dharma to your family members. You are reassuring them about their relationship with you. As the only Buddhist in the family, you're letting them know that you can discuss your spiritual practice without defensiveness or preachiness, and that you're still a rational, independent person who cares about them. So the second thing that you can do is to normalize your Buddhist community whenever you can. A big part of the tension when you're the only Buddhist in the family is familial suspicion or resentment of those people you do that Buddhist thing with. By its very nature, a Sangha is a group of people practicing Buddhism. So it excludes those who don't. Even if a Sangha wanted non-Buddhists to attend, why would the non-Buddhists want to come and sit in silence or participate in strange chanting rituals or spend hours talking about obscure Buddhist teachings or practices they don't even do? Boring. Notably, Buddhist temples founded by communities which were traditionally and culturally Buddhist, such as, Vietnamese or Cambodian or Thai temples, they tend to accommodate families much more than temples and centers founded by and for recent Western converts to Buddhism. Culturally grounded temples from the beginning expect whole families, including children, to be involved. They have feasts and celebrations, dances and parades, activities for children, memorials and cemeteries, and beautiful grounds to visit. I included several pictures of these kinds of things on the episode page for this episode on the Zen Studies podcast website. Convert Buddhist communities, on the other hand, have usually adopted only the formal practice aspects of the tradition, like studying the teachings or meditation, which were traditionally the parts done mostly by monastics or priests. Some communities are trying to become more well-rounded and inviting to practitioners' families, but the process is slow. If you're part of a mostly convert community, it can help if you take every opportunity to normalize the people in your Sangha to your family members. Invite family to any fun or social events your community might have, like potlucks or New Year's celebrations. Find ways for your family to meet some of the individuals you practice with and do normal things when you do, like eating a delicious meal or going to hear some music. Talk about your Sangha members. Mention their jobs or pets or any other aspects of their lives your family members might relate to. This can help your Buddhist community seem less exclusive or strange. So that's it for today. In the next episode, I'll talk about 4 additional ways to relieve some of the tension that can arise between our Buddhist practice and our family relationships, and to also create some more harmony in our life, hopefully. Then I'll discuss the special case of being in an intimate partnership with a non-Buddhist, including the challenges that can present and ways to address them. I hope you'll tune in. Thanks for listening.